Boom, here we go.
Here we fucking go. We're back, Morg. Love it, mate. Fucking roll the intro, let's go.
Oh! It's been a long time since I've done that. Hello, ladies and gents, and welcome back to the Football Booth podcast. To be exact, episode 2 of season 3. My name is Fennan, and joined alongside me as always, I've got my dearest old pal Mayhem. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, mate, I'm good. Good to be back. Good to be chatting all things football and ranting, getting a lot of shit off my chest for the past 2 weeks.
Oh, mate, you know what? I don't even know how far back we've missed. Like, I don't even know where we're going to start. I know if we were to record last week, I don't think it would have been a great week for either of us. More for you because it's not, your every week where we see what I'm not. I don't even want to mutter the words, but it was surprising. I was really shocked to see, especially. I mean, like looking at the highlights. So I guess we can start on the Killy game in the Viaplay Cup. So looking at the highlights, it just seemed as if like it was a game of two halves. I think Celtic squandered quite a few chances in the first half. Then they got forward, they got their goal, and then it was just pretty much a last-ditch effort towards the end to really pull back and resurrect whatever you possibly could. I mean, but look, I'm going to let you just fire away, mate. That's the best thing we can do.
Yeah, so yeah, obviously Rugby Park, it comes with its challenges. Plastic, horrific
Looked
excuse of a
awful. I
pitch.
didn't even know if it was my monitor or just the actual state of the pitch. Horrendous.
Yeah, that one of those plastic shitty pitches that are a fucking disease on Scottish football. Um, but there's no excuses really. I mean, you're saying that we squandered a few chances. I think that's being kind. We were horrific. Obviously, Lagerbilk was thrown in at the deep end. Only signed for the club a few days before. Was thrown in next to Narosky. Um, Ralston was still playing. Obviously Taylor, Hart, Holmes started. You know, McGregor was there. O'Reilly, and then the front three of Abada, Kyogo, and Mieda, and it was horrific, utterly horrific to the man. Just and I don't want to overreact. I don't want to do that because it's quite easy to. That's the problem. With Celtic, any result because of the standards that the club holds, the recent success. I think we've been spoiled with as well. And obviously, there's a lot of fans that have sort of only known success, and I'm old enough, just old enough, to remember that the season that we've just had and that replicated, it isn't an easy thing to do, So I think a lot of fans kind of just expect us to win the treble, and that's the bar because it's been that consistent way for the past five odd years. We've been there or thereabouts, bar the season that we shall not talk about. Um, but it was horrific. The fear always with Rodgers coming back is that some players that didn't particularly sparkle under Lennon. Plenty of players didn't sparkle under Lennon because it's no Lennon, but he was asking them to do certain things that just wasn't in their skill set. Players that Ange found a new role for, and they really thrived in it. And the big one for me, the big standout is Greg Taylor because he's been fantastic for 2 seasons. Been brilliant. Playing that inverted fullback and coming in and really taking responsibility. But he's not a marauding fullback that goes up and down the line. He's not getting to that byline, and I think that's more of what Brendan Rodgers wants. And he just hasn't been there. And I don't think we've played particularly well all season. The Killy game was, the absolute pinnacle of us being shit. Because we were so laboured. I remember when Rodgers left, and this isn't to say that that's a throwback, but when Rodgers left, there was a lot of this tippy tappy, go nowhere, and then we would kind of produce a moment of magic from whoever insert name Stuart Armstrong and Christie and all these boys that were floating around at the time, and it just never come. I think we could have played for another. We could have had another half hour. We probably should have. Again, on top of, and it's not an excuse whatsoever, on top of the shit performance, it was also the bog standard VAR-ness that comes with Scottish football and how shit it is.
Stonewall penalty, by the way.
I mean, yeah, I see it and couldn't see how the ref hadn't seen it and thought, that's fine, we've got VAR. They looked at it from multiple angles and decided it wasn't. The absolute nail in the coffin, because you kind of look at these things. Am I looking at this with green tinted specs? Am I dialing this up? Am I biased? Barry Ferguson, Rangers ex-captain and legend,
Yep.
says that it was a Stonewall penalty. He also says that your boy Armstrong, the Killy winger, should have been sent off for the elbow on Greg Taylor. I don't know about that. It looked to be a bit nasty, but I don't know how much intent was there to elbow him. He certainly catches him in the face. I probably think a yellow card is fine on that one. I know that, again, that's divided opinion, but Barry Ferguson said it was a red card.
Yeah,
and that's obviously
that's a big take in itself, really. And that honestly won't be the last that we speak of VAR in this episode. That's for sure.
Yeah. So, but that aside, we just looked off it. Abada has had his criticisms. The boy scores a lot of goals, but his ability to beat a man, his ability to deliver a ball is questionable. Maeda, I've said it for a long time that the guy is love-hate because he works so hard for the team and you love that energy and that effort, but it isn't enough to just run a lot to be a Glasgow Celtic footballer. It just isn't, and the guy has very little to no real outstanding technical ability. He is at best, for me, probably technically wise, a Scottish Championship level player, and he's playing for the champions because of his work rate and his endeavour. That isn't enough. And I think that's, whatever Andrew's doing, he was getting a turn out of him. I think, obviously Brendan's come in and we're starting to see just how I think Andrew's methodology was more on work and, get the ball to certain players and kind of minimise the touches that certain players would have. And Maeda kind of went under the radar in just how poor he was. Brendan's is a lot more get on the ball and do stuff with it. And we're starting to see that actually that this guy's nowhere near the level. So that was horrifically disappointing. Obviously, we change it in the second half because we're getting nowhere. The goal goes in, a cross comes shot that gets tapped in at the back post. We kind of switch off the whole defence. Really, I mean, it's hard. Lagerbilk, it's hard to really be too harsh because, like I said, he joined the club a few days ago. Narovski's still new, so they were forming a partnership. But Tony Ralston and Greg Taylor have been at this club for years now. They know the responsibility. And Ralston as well is another person that really and truthfully, probably you would say, he's the kind of player that we could play at home against St Johnstone. We'll get onto that because I think he's the kind of player that we should just be moving on and letting to go play for Livingston or whoever. And again, somehow Ange got a turn out of him and he got the contract. But, again, I think we're seeing just a drop off between Alistair Johnson coming back and, his shortcomings. So, we didn't do much. Haksabanovic come on. He's another one can fuck off after his Instagram post. See you later, Hacks. You've done fuck all for 2 years apart from a purple patch for a few games off the bench. See you later, mate. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. See that crown on your neck? Get the fuck. So he come on, and obviously he was the one that the challenge was on, and should have been a penalty. But apart from that, he did fuck all. Again, that's what he does. Yang was really the only bright spark. The boy one of the other Asian boys that we brung in, and he come on and was taking players on and was being direct and had a decent chance, kind of failed to him. I think he's about 6 or 7 yards out, gets deflected over the bar. But apart from that, it just didn't work. The keeper enough. I'm not quite sure what Callum McGregor's role is, but we've gone from someone that can control a match to the ball just seems to be moving past him. It doesn't seem to be affecting games. He's not on the ball. So I don't know what he's being asked to do, but clearly he either doesn't understand the role or he's not doing it right. And it seems to be sacrilege within the Celtic support that you can't say that Callum McGregor's doing something wrong. But as a captain, when you're fucking losing away at Rugby Park, right, you've got to get on that ball. You've got to start to dictate. You've got to get into players. You've got to do something to get this going. That's your responsibility as a captain. That didn't happen, and we just kind of faded out to a really shite performance, shite result, and obviously out of the cup, which is horrifically disappointing. But you kind of say, look, it's one game. Everyone can play bad. Ange had bad games, and I don't want to keep referring back to Ange, but at this point, we've only seen Brendan's team for 4 games, so it's difficult not to flip.
It's always going to be the go-to comparison, of course.
And we've got a very short amount of games to kind of assess, but certainly Brendan didn't step into a team that needed much. He stepped into treble winners, and the squad understanding of the role, whatever, and its ability to not adapt to how Brendan wants to play or have the players to facilitate that has made us a lot weaker. And that was shown there. And then we was expecting a reaction against St Johnstone. Now, I've watched the St Johnstone game back, the majority of it, so I'm not going to, because in the moment, everything is heightened and the frustration's there, and you're drawing with a bunch
absolutely, I can completely agree.
Drawing with a bunch of fucking hatchet merchants. I think the game on the weekend we were a 6, 7 out of 10. If O'Reilly takes a few of his chances, it's a solid 7. Maybe an 8 if he takes a few, and we probably cruise to a win. However, he doesn't, and if my granny had balls, she'd be my granda. So it didn't happen. We created quite a few chances in the first half. Kyogo, I don't know. There just seemed something off with him in that game. Like the runs he would normally make, the ball was being flashed across that front post. He was always hanging back. I don't know if he's being asked to do that. But you think for a striker, you get across the front post, get across the defender, which he normally does extremely well. And there was a load of balls flashed across. Alistair Johnson was whipping great balls in. Matt O'Reilly delivered a few, and he just wasn't there. Sort of standing off arms in the air. Not something we've seen from Kyogo, so I don't know. But I don't know if he's just frustrated. I don't know with what he's being asked to do. Not sure, but obviously, the guy is prolific, and if he had a chance, kind of come his way, that was more a natural chance. You absolutely back him to put it away. So, everyone has an off day, and you can kind of, put that down to that. But yeah, Yang again was out on the left. Maeda was on the right, and Yang was good. He looks a decent buy. Certainly was cutting back in, and maybe could have shot once or twice, but was trying to set up teammates. Matt O'Reilly should have bagged. Should have had probably a couple on the day, and he didn't. But I think he had a decent game as well. Was very direct runs from midfield, setting, keeping the play ticking over. Alistair Johnson, it was good to see him back, and I think he played all right. Then Ralston come on, that was a problem. And it was another game again that Callum the ball seems to phase around him at the moment. He's not getting involved in the game, which is strange, because we know how good he is at controlling games and picking players out and starting attacks. So not quite sure what the theory is behind it, and hopefully, obviously we're going into a huge game on Sunday, so hopefully, this week on the training ground we start to understand the system more, and we understand the roles it more, and we can, produce a far more clinical and better performance. So, looking at back, Joe Hart makes a really good save. A couple of good saves actually. One that Stevie May goes through and he saves as well. The other one's kind of like the Bhoys coming in from the right, and it's a reaction stop.
May, fucking hell.
Yeah, so Joe Hart's come under a lot of sticks. I think you he needs to be called out. Look, it was only a point at home to St Johnstone. That's disappointing. Every time that you draw in Glasgow, it's a problem, let alone lose. But we're top of the league with 7 points. Should have been 9. We should have won on the day, but we are still top of the league. The start, it hasn't been the start we would have wanted, but nevertheless we're top, and we go to Ibrox top of the league. So a big week coming up. I don't want to start to get too gun ho. People are calling for Brendan's head already. I don't quite think that Brendan understood, because of the way that he left. He just wasn't going to get any kind of time. He wasn't getting any kind of settling in. You've got to come here, perform, and keep us at the level we were at because of what you've done before. So I think there's still a lot of that flaring up. Obviously, the Green Brigade making their feelings known, and the players were booed off, and everyone has their own opinions on that. But people pay their money to get in. They've a right to voice their opinions. A lot of people giving the Green Brigade stick and that, but they're the same as season ticket holders. They pay a lot of money to follow the team everywhere.
Yeah,
if they want to,
exactly.
if they want to give the team stick, then they're entitled to do that. If you want to stand there and clap, you're entitled to do that as well. So it is what it is. Like I said, watching the game back and taking obviously the anxiety and the frustration out of it, and watching it back, obviously knowing what had happened, it was an okay performance that would have probably been taken up to a solid performance. That's a decent 3 points in performance if we'd have taken one of the chances. But yeah, apart from that, I mean, taking Yang off, he was arguably our most direct and best player in the St Johnstone game, to bring on James Forrest. I mean, it was as if you picked someone out of the crowd when you brought on Forrest. He's been a great servant for the football club. 100 goals, 100 assists is an incredible achievement. He got his testimonial, which was fantastic to see. And he, especially in that first Rodgers stint, he was brilliant. When Paddy Roberts coming, there was competition on that right side. By the way, that was a transfer link that was running around Paddy Roberts. That can get the fuck and all.
Paddy Roberts. Who's he at now? Borough, isn't it? Or
Sunderland?
Sunderland, that's it. Yeah.
You fucking stay at Sunderland, mate. Appreciate your effort, appreciate your time, appreciate that you supported us growing up and all that kind of carry on, but that's grand, mate. You stay where you are. And to take off Yang, who was looking one of the most likely people to create something, to bring on Forrest, I don't actually think got past his man once. I think he got the ball cut back past and did absolutely fuck all. Just screams to me that this is a guy that we need to be moving on, or he needs to take it upon himself and realise that he's not at the level anymore.
That's it. Yeah, he hasn't got the legs for what he has produced in the past. I don't know, mate. It seems like there's so many layers to this situation at Celtic, and I think the big talking point is that Rodgers is not going to have a lot of time, especially after the cup result against Killy. It's again like the fact that you got fans already turning on him. And at the same time, he's come back into the club off the back of just constant, consistent success under Ange. And all managers have their own philosophies. They all have their own styles. And we were talking there like just by a few examples of Greg Taylor being a fullback who can bomb back, go back and forth, which we know he can't do. He hasn't got the stamina for it. Callum McGregor seems like that he's being used in a different role now under Brendan, and then of course you've also got all the new faces coming in as well, and being chucked into the first 11 in a game which, of course, Celtic are going to be favourites going in, but then you look at the bigger picture, playing on an artificial pitch. And with a team that is in complete transition, not just with the style of play, but also with new faces coming in as well. It's a massive jumble of issues there, and this is the thing. Like he's got to get it right at Ibrox. I think if he gets a point at Ibrox, that will prolong his time a little bit longer. I think fans like yourself as well would be like, well, okay, a point's not too bad based off of the back of the St Johnstone result and the Killy result, and then even on top of that as well, like some positive news. It seems like that Atate and I don't even know if this is good news either. That Abada as well are both close to agreeing new deals. I don't know how true that is.
There's a lot of chat. Apparently, Hatate um, rebuffed the first contract. There's a lot of noise as to whether he's as injured as we're being made to believe, and maybe he's wanting to make sure that he doesn't actually pick up a serious knock with the noise and speculation. Abada's obviously playing. And look, Leo Abada's a strange one because he does frustrate, but then he'll bang 15 goals for your season. So, and he scored some massive goals for Celtic. He's scored some big goals in derbies, and the Dundee United game, comes to head and his first season. So he's got goals in him, which is one of the hardest things. So, I just think we probably we do need bodies. Obviously, Cameron Carter Vickers I think is a grade 3 tear. He's out. Stephen Walsh is out. Narofsky is out as well. So at the moment, the defence is extremely weak. Alistair Johnson obviously returned, which is a big plus. He got 16 minutes under his belt against St Johnstone. I imagine that's prepping him.
And he was out for quite a while as well. Yeah. So.
Mm-hmm. So look, there is injuries through the team, especially in the defence. But I think we need bodies. There is the Honduras winger whose name is escaping me and begins with P. That we're signing, and that looks basically done dusted. Expected Wednesday or Thursday, just waiting on international clearance, 3.5 million or something.
My head just went to Palacios. That was it.
I think it's like Palma or something like that. I don't know, but he's in from the club he's leaving to come in with a big hype and a big reputation, and that's the kind of market that Celtic operate in. We're linked with Daniel Podence. I don't know how true that is. Apparently, from what we understood, he come up and met with representatives at Celtic, and what he was asking for, we wasn't willing to give him, and apparently that kind of died. And then we've brung in, I don't know if it is Palmer, but we'll go with that name, and that could be absolutely ridiculed if it isn't. But we've then gone out and signed this guy, which kind of tells you that maybe we're not looking for the Podence still. But if we can get Daniel Podence, it would be a fantastic signing. Obviously was, I think, decent at Wolves, and for whatever reason he's run down to last year of his contract. He's not interested in staying at Wolves. So if we can get him up, I think wages is going to be the problem. But it would heavily improve us. And we're linked with a few other names. Obviously, we were linked with KT. Barca broke my heart by going to Real Sociedad. So that isn't happening again. I think the big stumbling point there was how much he was earning and the fact that Arsenal didn't want to loan him, and then they loaned him. So I imagine that Real Sociedad are paying a heftier chunk. I think we were only willing to pay 30% or something.
It's got to be the case, yeah.
Interested in.
It's got to be, yeah.
Because there's no option to buy, from what we understand, there's no option to buy with the Sociedad loan. So I don't think we need a left back that suits Brendan and how he wants to play. In terms of Bernabé, again, he just doesn't seem to be it. So we've got two left backs at the club that obviously Brendan I don't think is overly keen on in terms of the style he wants to play. So we need to do that. We're linked with I think it's Ronnie Edwards from Peterborough as a central defender.
Would be a good option.
And I think that's again to bring someone in to cover the shortcomings that we obviously have at the moment. And we probably need a couple more after that. I think, look, the thing with Podence and players that are on that ilk, I think it's something with the reports were something like 7.5 million was the number that was being bandied around. Brendan Rodgers left the football club because we lost, as we were going into unprecedented times and trebles coming out of our arse, and he decided to step away because the club didn't want to invest and they didn't want to go for players like John McGinn for 3 million, right? If Daniel Podence is available and we can strike a deal and we can all be agreeable and you have to pay 7.5 million, the last time you paid high money was for Edouard. Guess what? Edouard was fantastic. Go and fucking pay the money. I'm sick and tired of this shit. We've sold Jota for 25 million. We've banked Champions League money, right? Go and spend that money, right? We shouldn't be, we should not be in a scenario here where we are weaker,
No,
right?
absolutely,
We
absolutely
we knew
not.
we knew Jota was going, right? And that would have been
And now he could be leaving Saudi.
yeah. But we knew he was going, right?
Yeah,
Because one, that's the model that Celtic represents. Come
yeah,
here and perform, and then go off and make it big somewhere else. So we always knew that there was going to be a time when Jota stepped away. He wasn't going to be here for 6 7 years, right? So why were we not actively pursuing people that we wanted to come in and fit this mold and slot in as a Jota replacement? It just seems like we've been caught out again, and this shit always happens when we have a really really good player. Very rarely do we just go and act, or are we proactive? It was something that Andrew was really good at. Before we let Juranovic go, Alistair Johnson was in the door. These kind of things. So, yeah, I think it will go all the way up to deadline day. I expect we'll probably get 3 new faces through the door. Brendan's been vocal about it. The money's there. So, now we've just got to go and make those deals happen. We've left it right till the wire, as we always seem to do, even though we haven't got qualifiers and we can't bullshit around this whole myth about, oh, well, the market opens up when they know we're playing Champions League. Well, they fucking know we're playing Champions League. We knew that when we won the league. We haven't been able to secure deals. So it's going to go all the way down to the wire. I expect a couple of faces through. The Honduras boy is sort of done, dusted.
yep.
Load of reports on Podence, whether that's bullshit or not, remains to be seen. And then I imagine there'll be a few names that will get banded around as we approach the deadline, and hopefully we can get a few in to bolster us. A couple of faces in, and then the season really kickstarts and we can go into overdrive. I think we probably do need a left back, which I think is harsh on Greg Taylor, but he's just in a system that that's amplifying what he's not good at. That overall sprint speed and acceleration to get to the byline. He's good on the ball. He's good, really good defensively. He's an intelligent footballer, which is shown for the past 2 years. But he just doesn't have that, speed to get past a man and get to the byline and cause that problem. So we'll see. But I think probably do need a left back, and then the wings is big. Obviously, we still have Tillo that we signed from the A League and's been injured, so we haven't seen him kick a ball yet. But I think we need some reinforcements in, and hopefully shifting some of the absolute deadwood out. But some players that are just unwilling to move. The likes of Albion Yeti is happy to run down his contract and stuff like that. So
know that feeling.
Yeah, we'll see how the next week unfolds. But I'm hoping with a couple of new boys in the squad, whether or not they start, it's a big ask to go into your first game in the derby. But whether or not they start remains to be seen. But hopefully, some real strength and depth from the bench to come on and affect the game.
Just a much needed facelift, and hopefully it speeds up that transition.
Yeah, and the what I've seen of home, he didn't have a very good game, obviously, at Kilmarnock, but he was decent when he come on against Aberdeen. I think he looks decent. He'll grow into the role. I think we miss Hatati, but we don't know where his head's at. We don't know what he wants to do, but he's a special player, and obviously, I think when you have a special player like that, you're going to miss him if he's not in the team. So we'll see how that unfolds, but the recruitment team needs to get their heads together now and really get pen to paper and get these deals across the line. If we need to pay a little bit more because we've dicked about coming to deadline day, then lot Peter Laurel out of the fucking club and get these deals done. Right? Tight bastard, but all of a sudden's come back to the club and we're now penny pinching again. So get him to fuck, right? Get him on his heated driveway, leave him at home, right? And let's get some deals done and really kick on and make sure that we retain what we should, which is at the absolute bare minimum, the league title. And obviously we've in 4 days or 3 or whatever it is, with the group stage of the Champions League draw. So big nights to look forward to, but we don't want to be the whipping boys. We need to get in a position where we can go and we compete on these big nights and
make it
interesting. So yeah, hopefully be a much more positive turn on things come Monday. And if we were to get a result at Ibrox, it would go a long way to healing the wounds. They don't look up to much either, to be honest. I mean, the glimpses I've caught of them, they haven't looked like they're anything special. So the game could be a lot about desire and heart come Sunday rather than overall quality. And obviously, it's going to be a cauldron. You know, we've rejected their dog shit offer of whatever it was, 700 tickets as an allocation. Go fuck yourselves. So it's just going to be packed full of their.
Why is the ticket allocations just so dire now?
Well, they couldn't stand us partying, mate. We were bringing whatever it was, 7,000. They're winning too much and partying, so they cut the allocations.
That's mental. Absolute
And
nonsense.
and they're crying. They're crying now because they've offered us 800 and we've said no, fuck you. And now they're expecting to be offered tickets in the reversal. They've killed the atmosphere in the derby, but fuck them. I don't really give a shit if they never step foot back in paradise again. It'll be better for it. So look, it'll be as tough as it gets on Sunday. It'll obviously be a full home crowd, no away support, but it's what it is. And you know, if you want to win the league, you've got to go and perform in these games.
Yeah, absolutely. One last note before we move on from Celtic. Like, of course, you know, living in Sweden, being a massive football fan, I'm surprised I didn't get a message you reaching out to me of what Lager Bielke is like coming from Elfsborg.
A lot of people have said from what I've seen, people have been talking about one of the highest rated young centre backs in Sweden. So I didn't want you to tell me shit, and then
Look, I'll tell you my honest opinion on him. Never heard of him. I just thought, oh, they got an Elfsborg centre back. No, no, they've been quite a force in the Allsvenskan in the last year. So the fact that Celtic were monitoring him and managed to get him through the door seems like a really good coup. And by all means, it was the same thing when Starfelt went to the club. Like, I mean, I actually had heard of him prior, but no, like, you know, a young centre back who highly tipped to be a big prospect for the national team of Sweden, and I think he's found himself in a good place there at Celtic. So I'm just hoping, like, even
I mean, that's the model though, right? So a new Starfelt was moving on, sold him for 5 million or whatever, and Lagerbilk was identified and brought in
for
pretty fucking swiftly.
yeah,
Imagine everyone being happy with that model, right? Are you gonna get an exact replica of Jota? No, real special player. Where he goes left or right, the skills, you know, the flair. You're just not, you know, the tash, the whole porn tash mullet. You know, you're not gonna get that.
shag him now, wouldn't you?
But you could have easily have had three suitable replacements. If this boy from Honduras is your man, then we could have had him in weeks ago. Jota's been gone for ages. If Daniel Podence is your top target, get the fucking checkbook out and pay the money. If he wants big wages, then right, either we can afford him and we get him in, or we can't and we move on real quick. So if we end up signing Daniel Podence and this boy, the questions do have to be asked of right, why are we dicking around till we're 4 weeks into the season, you know, 3 games and a cup game into the season to get these boys in? What's been the delay? And
Yeah.
it just
And you got
Celtic.
25 million for Jota as well.
Yeah,
like,
5 million.
It's not
5
as
million
if
for
like
Starfield. So we got 30 million from transfers, and I know, you know, the way that transfers work, we don't get all that 30 million at once. You know, we're not sitting here as fucking 12-year-olds playing FIFA going, but we've got 25 million for him. Right, we're not going to get all of that at once, but we're not going to, if you go and pay, you know, fucking 10 million for someone or whatever, you're not going to give them 10 million up front. Right? That's going to be broken down as well. Look, very rarely is a transfer fee in full. That shit just isn't going to happen. But we could easily have identified these players and brought them in quicker. Like,
Yeah.
Brendan had a full pre-season. He's been here for a while. He says he's watched a lot of games from last season, so we should have had a good idea of the squad after the pre-season. Right, coming towards the end of the pre-season, this is what we need, and we should have gone out and done these deals earlier. But we've now got to get our finger out and get it done.
Well, again, it just sort of shows the difference in the managers and Brendan and Ange. One shows proactivity and the other shows reactivity.
Well, look, I think I don't know. Brendan clearly come back to the. I don't think he would have come back into this football club without being given certain promises. One of them, I would imagine, has been around players. His press conference has been pretty direct about that. So I think we will sign players. I don't think Brendan is kind of not wanting to sign players. I think we've been lackadaisical in the recruitment team of identifying these players and getting them on the phone and getting deals done, which is absolutely top tier levels that Celtic operate at, fucking about with money and transfers. But we are where we are now. We need to go and get these deals done. It's not to say that these are panic buys or whatever. Your Cameron Carter Vickers, Jota, and I think I remember there was like three players that come in on deadline day a few years ago. Cameron Carter Vickers, Jota. It may have been Hatati as well or someone else, but it
Yeah.
shows that even if they're coming in this late, they can be good signings. So like I said, get the finger out. If Jota's available, fucking bring him back as well.
Exactly. Keep the faith. Well, if we turn the SPL upside down, we'd be seeing Hibs at the summit of the SPL. Unfortunately, not. They're the opposite end. Lee Johnson given the boot off the back of a 3-2 defeat to Livingston in the league, and then the absolute 5-0 humbling from Villa in Europe last Thursday. I mean, just went up in flames with him, really, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Angus maybe, the Villa game was always going to be difficult from, you'd hope they would give a better account of themselves. Because, look, Hibs are better than 5-0 against Aston Villa. Aston Villa have shown this season they're a very good team. And, apart from getting absolutely pummeled at Newcastle, which I did see, there was a lot of English EPL fans and all this crap saying that the Scottish League is League One tier and all this bollocks. Well, that means that if we're applying that same methodology, then Newcastle pumping Villa 5-1, whatever it was on opening day, means that Villa are League One standard. So to everyone that's given off that shit, fuck you. But that game is always going to be difficult. I think it's the league results that have shot them in the foot. And the problem is when you're in these qualifiers and you're travelling, it's difficult. It is difficult to perform. We've seen it plenty of times with Celtic come off the back of European games, being flat after the game. So it's harsh. Obviously they finished strong last season. They've lost big players, Kevin Nesbitt, Ryan Porteous. Over the last two windows, they've lost big players. So it was always going to be difficult for them.
Yeah.
And they're operating in even smaller windows. I mean, they're signing Adam Lafondra, who's better known these days for his Football Manager saves rather than his footballing ability. Sorry, Adam, if this ever reaches your ears.
I honestly couldn't believe that. I didn't think he was still playing at that point.
Yeah, sorry if this ever hits your ears, Adam, but you're welcome to a network save.
Great, get him in. Come on, Alfie. It makes sense.
Come on the pod and tell me how wrong I am. But yeah, they're operating in those kind of windows, and it is difficult. How long can they keep producing John McGinn's, Ryan Porteous, and Kevin Nesbitt, or finding those players? So it's going to be difficult for them.
Yeah.
But I think Hibs will be fine as long as they don't appoint Neil Lennon. Don't do that. Don't fucking do it, Hibs. I think one of the favourites for the job, I think, was Darren Moore.
Okay.
I think it was still pretty high. I think he was like 16-1. So obviously they're in that region of trying to feel out who would be interested. But I think for them, they need to make sure that they get the right person in. It's going to be difficult. It's not going to have a window. It's going to be all of. That's why I always feel it's a bit daft to do this. In August it's going to take you probably a week to appoint a manager, so they're not going to have any time to bring anyone in, and then they're going to have to deal with players that maybe don't fit their system or their style or whatever. So a little bit strange. I think he could have been given a little bit more time, and I think Gibbs will come good. They've obviously produced some real good home performances to get to the Conference League playoff where they met Villa. And unfortunately, it was always going to be a really, really difficult tie. But I think they'll go down to Villa Park with the pressure off them, and they'll give a far better account of themselves.
Win 6-0. Who knows?
But by then, obviously, the tie's dead. So even if they go there and get a 1-1 draw, everyone will just say that, Villa weren't really trying and all this dog shit bollocks that's heaved on you from England. So, Yeah, but I think they'll certainly give a better account of themselves. They'll be riled up for that. Um, and it's difficult, when you do have a big game, the likes of the Villa game, it can impact other results. We see with Newcastle last season, building up to that cup final, that their league form slipped. So building up to these European games, unfortunately, sometimes you can sort of take your eye off a team that the St Mirrens and the Livingstons that you think you should beat, and then you get caught out doing that. So harsh on him, but important for Hibs to go and appoint the
Yeah.
right man, especially with I think the Edinburgh Derby's coming up as well, big game. Um, so they've got to make sure that
Yeah.
they
It's a
get it
fixture they
right.
don't tend to do well in though either. That's the thing. But
Yeah,
I've got
not
such a soft spot for Hibs. Courtesy of Stu's old man.
yeah,
You
not
always want
not
to see him do well.
not as of late. They haven't quitted themselves too well, but yeah, I've obviously there's a lot of history between Hibs and Celtic, going the way back. Um, so yeah, I like to see them do well. Not too well. I don't want them to beat us. Fuck that shit. But I like to see them up there. One of the biggest teams in Scotland up there with obviously Aberdeen and Hearts and that. So it's nice to see them. You know, and I think they're in an okay place. They've done. They're not ultimately going to end up in Europe this season, but they've had some really good results in the qualifiers, which hasn't always been the case for Scotland. And hopefully, while we're on that, Hearts and Aberdeen can do the business in their tie. I see that Aberdeen got a draw in Sweden to bring back to
Oh heckin'
Pittodrie.
yeah.
And then I didn't see the Hearts result, but hopefully they can. Obviously, they had a really good performance against Rosenborg to get into those playoffs as well. So hopefully they can both get the jobs done, and we can have 3-4 participants for Scotland in Europe this year.
That would be brilliant, wouldn't it? Would actually make it like a lot more watchable as well. I think we'd keep a sharp eye on the Scottish teams and on their progress in Europe and
Yeah, I think,
give it a bit more airtime in a way.
yeah, I think Aberdeen have got a real good chance. They're good at Pittodrie. So I think they've a real good chance of progressing. Um, I should really have kept an eye on Hearts, but you know, um, with them being who they are, I tend to.
Easy to let them slip. Don't worry.
Um, Thursday night football Conference League. Yeah. They lost 2-1 at home to Pauk or
Oh,
PAOK. So
the Greek side, yeah.
they've got to go out to Greece and get a win, but doable. Difficult for them, but yeah, they're still in the tie, which is more than can be said for the other Edinburgh club. I'm very upbeat and happy, and then we kind of transition across, and there's a big exhale out. But yeah, we've seen this season Cardiff being hurt with some late goals, but absolute limbs on the weekend. I think before we get into the limbs, I guess the heartbreak was Leicester. I think that's the game that we missed, where I didn't catch too much of it, but it looked like he's applied yourselves pretty well, and then obviously got hurt late on.
I mean, I think if we just look at the first three games of the season, so obviously we started off Leeds away. I know we discussed that in the previous episode, but then since then we've scraped past Colchester in the Carabao Cup on penalties. We've lost to QPR at home. And if I was as much as a betting man as Cam is, I'd be living in a cardboard box right now and we wouldn't be doing this podcast anymore. I would have honestly bet the whole world on us getting one over QPR. But the result turned out the way it did. And then there was Leicester away, where again it was late heartbreak. And I'll break them down as we go on as well. But if you saw on Twitter, like I again had my heat of the moment whilst watching the game, and where how we lost those games was incredibly infuriating, absolutely infuriating. And it's so easy to recollect similar disappointment from the previous season, where it's the same issues as we've had previously, where we have no defensive awareness, no organisation. We give the opposition attack too much space on the ball, and we get punished for it. And then when we do go forward and have opportunities, which we have plenty of in all, in every game that we play, and we squander every chance we get. And so, yeah, so going back to like the Colchester and the QPR games, we conceded 4 goals, which were all easily avoidable. But again, there's that lack of awareness of having players on you and then losing possession just outside our own box, and they punish us straight away. Ball across goal. It's all like, honestly, every goal just looks so identical. It's ridiculous. And then, so that was pretty much the QPR and the Colchester game. Thankfully, with Colchester, we managed to, find the ball in the back of the net when it came to penalties, and Jack Annick just turned into prime Jersey Dudek. And then going on to the Leicester game, that was more of a game that was 2 halves. We had to weather a massive storm in that first half until it got to, the first goal where they broke the deadlock. Great finish by all means, but again, could have been avoidable. Josh Bowler loses his man, and I can't remember his name for the life of me. It's their fullback, I think, or their winger. But again, great technique on the finish. It's a brilliant goal by all means. Only to be topped by one man and one man only, the beautiful Welsh wizard himself, who isn't Gareth Bale, Aaron Ramsey, with an absolute worldie. Goal of the season contender already. To just pick that out from out of nowhere against a run of play was just spectacular. And then to see him run the length of the pitch to the away end and celebrate the way he did was a special moment. And I think at that point, if we just now go into the second half, try and get him on the break, because we're gonna allow them to have possession. We're gonna be very cautious. We're gonna try and keep a disciplined line at the back and just not to break shape whatsoever. And that's exactly what we did. And we managed to get him on the break. We had a few very good chances through, like Yaku Mete, who had come on second half, looked really effective. It was a game that Uke Ugbo, who I know who has scored 3 in his first 4 league appearances for Cardiff, just couldn't get into the game whatsoever, was completely isolated. And Yaku Mete, who has struggled to stay fit, has again, he's come on, he's shown that he can be a very impactful player for us going forward this season. Again, should have taken this chance. Unfortunately, he didn't. Joe Rawls has a great opportunity. He forces a good save out of the goalkeeper. And then it was Demetrius Gutas who had to go off. I think he had a knock that game, but wasn't a concern as he started against Sheffield Wednesday this past weekend. And we lost Gutas, and unfortunately the next centre-back we've got is Jack Simpson. Now, he was fault. He was at fault for the goal, completely at fault for the goal. And I picked on him a lot last season. I'm putting my hands up. I did pick on him a lot, but I'm picking on him again, not because I've got a dislike for him or anything like that. I'm picking on him because he's fucking shit.
I have a dislike for him.
Because he's shit, I dislike him. I have no idea how this guy manages to even be a professional footballer. This is someone who
must be pals with Maeda.
Must be pals with Maeda. I mean, this is someone...
Same agent.
Fuck off. Has he really got the same agent?
Of course not. Maeda come from fucking Japan. But they're the same kind of fucking technical ability.
Yeah, but honestly, just he just has no awareness to be a footballer, full stop, never mind to be a defender. I think really Morrison brought him in because he was left with bare bones in terms of thinking, right, is there any left-footed centre-backs I can bring in who could potentially deploy as a left-back? Well, newsflash, Jack Simpson can't play either. Can't do either. Utterly useless. Still goes to show that we've still got Deadwood in the side as well. And
type of cunt that struggles to sit on the bench effectively.
Well, this is it, and like I said it last season. He was awful last season. Nothing's changed whatsoever. But again, like at the time, losing my shit on social media, by all means. I mean, looking back now, it was like, okay, heat of the moment sort of thing. But then seeing it now from an outside perspective in a more, mellow mindset, they're not bad results on paper. To come away with a point against two sides that were Premier League sides last season, and especially with one of them being Leeds and being absolutely thumped 5-2 at Ellen Road last season, when we let Willie Gnonto, funny enough and coincidentally enough, run rings around Jack Simpson. And to come away with a point against them two, what wasn't too bad. The QPR game was a complete write-off, and thankfully this weekend we managed to put things right and have a late goal go in our favour. And I'd like to make a toast to Will Vaulks. Thank you for the handball in the box in the 90th minute. Cheers, pal.
I mean, if we're investigating people for betting, right.
As soon as he came on, I was just like, I really hope he manages to just dictate which way this game goes.
I mean, what the fuck is he doing? I mean, he's literally thrown his arm at the ball in the 6-yard box in the last minute of the game, directly in the linesman. I mean, I've never seen a Lino shake his flag so vigorously. He was. I just watching the game back, and I mean, the Cardiff goal was brilliant. The way the boy takes it on his chest and volleys it.
Ugbo, yeah, brilliant. That's what I like about Ugbo. I think if you put him as a number 9, he's got a really good instinct to be in and around the box and just finds himself in the right position at all times. And again, took his goal perfectly in that.
Yeah, and then only to be topped by Celtic supporting Barry Bannon. Absolute beauty of a goal. Obviously,
great finish. But again, giving him too much space.
Yeah,
too much space. Too many bodies in front of him.
A real affection for Cardiff, obviously through you, and I like to watch the games. If they're on TV, I don't go to the lengths that you would and stream them. But obviously, if they're on TV, and always look out for the results. Normally, there's that little dot on flash scores next to him in the 98th minute. There's normally something happening. But yeah, Bannon's beautiful goal. A wonder save from your keeper as well, Josh Windass.
Oh yes, of course, the Jack Hannock save, top class.
While we're talking about ball bags, Josh Windass obviously gets on the end, and an absolute magical save. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy.
No, fuck Josh Windass. Can't fucking stand him.
If it ever gets to your ears, and we issued a kind of semi apology, Adam Lafondra, I'm sorry for absolutely fucking nothing. Fuck you. So beautiful save, and then Volks throws his arm at it. He must be distant cousins with Lucas Paqueta. So let's start investigating his Bet365 account. And then I did feel there was this lovely mirror image that Volks has got his arm on it and given away the penalty, and then number 6 is stepping up for the penalty. I did find that was some nice symmetry, and obviously buries it limbs. And at the fear of sounding really repetitive, I think we probably said this a few times last year. Hopefully now, kickstart the season and really catapult you, early on away from being dragged into the dogfight. And like you said, a point at Ellen Road is a good point, no matter how it comes. And I think we can be truthful and say that again, that was maybe a wee bit fortunate with the overall of the game. Leeds were obviously heavily on top, but it was a really dogged defensive performance. And again, let yourselves down late on. I know we've discussed it. The QPR result was shit, and Leicester again. If you go to the King Power and you was to get a point, I think you would have settled to lose late is disappointing. But 2 real good accounts of yourselves against teams that you would expect to be right at the top of the league come the end of the season. And then you've come back after that disappointment. After a few weeks of disappointment, late goals, and you've gone right to the end. Folksy's got his hand on it beautifully, and you've felt the other side of it.
I just love how he's got no one round him either. Literally no one. NG doesn't beat the first man with that cross either. All he has to do is just leave it. He just needs to leave it, and the fact that he goes to dive and header it out for a corner at the very
It's
least.
nowhere near his head either.
This is it, and he's like, I'm so glad. I was chuffed when we got rid of him as well. I don't care if he's Welsh. He's utter wank. He's got nothing on him apart from, okay, he scored a goal from his own half against Brentford one season. Apart from that, the guy's a walking yellow card, red card, own goal, all of the above. There was a reason why Rob Page just never picked him for the national setup. So, yeah, no, but like you said, we picked up well. And just like with Celtic as well, not quite, a similar transition as we have, but it's still a transition where Errol Bullett's added a lot of quality into the side and also taking into account what markets he can explore to bring in reinforcements. If there's anything I could say on his philosophy right now, it seems as if that he really, really just wants every outfield player who is not an attacker to play it through Aaron Ramsey, because you see how deep he sits in the games as well. The fact that he's on the edge of our box and we're looking to break through Aaron Ramsey, and then he's got either Josh Bowler on the right, and then Karlan Grant. If it's not Karlan Grant, it's Yaku Mata, who's come in and is playing out wide because both just can't play out wide at the moment. The emergence of Ollie Tanner, who's come in as well, has looked very effective when he came on. He pretty much made a big difference when he came on against QPR, but again, too little, too late. I don't understand it like you were saying with I think you were saying it with a similar player with Celtic. It seems as if it's what I feel with Callum Robinson and Errol Bullett. I don't see how he doesn't fit into his plans. Like, the guy was our most influential player last season, but for whatever reason doesn't start for us, doesn't fit to his plans whatsoever. And I really thought having him and Karlan Grant on the team sheet together would have been very impactful going forward. And so there's something there that Bullett just doesn't seem to really like about Robbo, and so he's being used as just an option, an option on the bench. Etete's still getting on the pitch more than he is, and again, I like Etete as well. I thought he was one of our key players going into the latter stages of last season, and so he's also, and Bullett's brought in a new midfielder who is so identical to Gary Medel, based off the build he is. Like, he's about 5'7", like just a little bulldog who just gets stuck in, breaks up play, and has just got energy to burn throughout. Bombs forward, gets back, has a good pass on him, and so I'm hoping having Siopis in now, that will allow Ramsey to have a bit more freedom to go forward, and then he could sit with Wintle or Rulsey perhaps, and just allow Ramsey to pick options going forward. And you can notice the quality as well when Ramsey does get forward. Like, you could see the difference in levels where Ramsey has played at the highest stages in football, and he's picking out all these little flicks and passes into areas, and Josh Bowler just was like, didn't know you were going to do that. Like, you could really see the difference in experience between them two. But I'm hoping, again, that's going to change over time. That's going to be part of the transition of learning how to play the Bullet way. And like I said, I really hope we can build on this performance against Sheffield Wednesday. I pray that we can improve defensively, because that's what's really letting us down at the moment, and that we can take our chances going forward.
Yeah, so great time to pick up a little bit of momentum. Obviously, a few weeks out from the derby as well.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks away now. Like, so we go to St Andrews tomorrow, third round of the Carabao Cup. I'm pretty sure there'll be a lot of rotation from Bullet, as there usually is in the cup competitions. Gives the other boys a chance to impress. So the likes of Tanner and Robbo, if he does give him the thumbs up to start, Keon Etete, It's the thing, like we've got plenty of depth going forward now, which is nice to see. I would like him to just purely to see the end of Jack Simpson for him to bring in another centre back. Please God, bring in another centre back, please Errol. And then next Saturday we go to Portman Road away against an informed Ipswich side who have looked incredibly good so far this season.
Cracking game against Leeds on the weekend.
Yeah.
So they look good. What I tend to do as some kind of sick punishment is watch Postecoglou's Spurs team.
Looking good right now. Bit of champagne football going on down there.
I think Tottenham, obviously with my brother being a Tottenham fan and my dad as well, we've watched a lot of them over the years. The one thing that you always said about Tottenham was they don't win trophies, but they play nice football. Over the past sort of 3-4 years, they've not won trophies and they've not played nice football. So at least they're getting back to one. And obviously had a good result against United, played well in the second half. And then, away to Bournemouth, I thought they were pretty good. James Maddison, he looks like some seriously good business. And I know there was a press conference where someone said to Postecoglou it was. But by the way, to anyone listening in England, it's Postecoglou because you seem to be struggling to pronounce it down there. But yes, Postecoglou did say, someone said it was a bargain, and he says, I don't know what world you live in, a 45 million or 40 million or whatever's a bargain, but it looks like real good business with the inflation market we're in. Him in for 40 million looks like real good business.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I think Maddison deserves to be playing at a top 6 club. I think that's the sort of calibre of player that Tottenham have now got in their hands. Still at a very good age, who can still improve, not just himself, but the players around him as well. Like you see that, even the younger players that have emerged into the Spurs side, like Destiny Udogie, the left wing back, who is looked like a breath of fresh air to the side. Hopefully, it brings even the best out of the likes of Pedro Porro. Van der Ven, the new centre back they brought in from Wolfsburg. It's the thing, like he's really like got them going under a very, very good. Yeah, they just look like a breath of fresh air completely. I think now if they can get in a goal scorer, which won't be easy. It's not going to be easy to replace Kane's goals, but
you're not going to replace Harry Kane's goals.
No,
you're just not. It's impossible to do it with one player. It just is. So it needs to be shared more around the squad. I think it will be just with the way that Ange will set them up and how they'll go forward. Kulusevski, Son, Maddison. Even the likes of the wing backs. See Pedro Porro. I think in the United game hit the bar, and I think he scored or in the Brentford game.
Yeah, I think he did. Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did get in the
Basuma looks like a man with life breathed into him as well. Obviously, Sarr scored from midfield in the United game. So
I think, the unsung hero right now, Pepe Mata Sarr. Yeah,
I think they'll share goals more rather, but they Richarlison just isn't it. I'm sorry to any big Richarlison fans, but that guy isn't it. They're linked with the Forest boy, Brennan Johnson. I'm sorry to say as well, he isn't it either. So
he's not, and I hate to say it because I love Brennan Johnson, but again, this is.
And we see it first game of the season, right? So first game of the season, the bright lights are on. You're away at the Emirates. You know you're only going to get a few chances. Ball breaks for you. You tank it, fucking up into Rose Ed. Like that is not someone that's going to come in and produce much more than Richarlison is. Richarlison is. I've said this guy's name far too much on this podcast because he's fucked me off for a lot over the last 2 weeks.
Just call him Pigeon.
But Richarlison is the Tottenham Maeda. It isn't enough to work hard. It really is. It is not enough. They need to go out. You got real good money for Kane. I know that they've spent a lot, so they are probably balancing the books a little bit. They're probably you don't have the full whack to go and invest in, maybe like a Lissandro Martinez or someone like that. But you need to go and find someone. I mean, the money's crazy in football these days. Brighton slapping like whatever it was, like 120 20 million on Ferguson or something. Like the money's fucking stupid, but you need to go and find a replacement, and it needs to not be Brennan Johnson, because he is not going to be someone that
No,
bags
he's
20
not a
goals.
number 9, to be
If
honest.
if
He's not.
if there wasn't all the bad press and he wasn't banned, you'd probably be talking around Ivan Toney. Obviously, even through everything last year, he was the third highest goal scorer. But they need to go and find someone that's going to produce up top, at that spearhead, at least 15 goals, and then allow the team to share and make up, the 25 that Harry Kane produces year on year.
Yeah. Yeah, and even there, Harry Kane as well is continued where he left off at Spurs, and he's scoring goals for Bayern. Scored 2 the other day in their 3-1 victory.
You're right. He did pick up where he left off. His first game was the Super Cup, and they lost to Leipzig, so still no trophies. So
Yeah,
he is
poor
picking up
Harry.
where he left off. Um, but yeah, there must like I'm not a scat. I don't go around, but
No,
there must be a better option than Brennan Johnson out there.
I think there is.
I mean, even again, I don't know what he would be in this market, and I'm sure there'd be Tottenham fans screaming now we don't want him. But someone like Ollie Watkins is surely a better option than Brennan Johnson. He had a decent finish to the end of the season. I think he scored a few goals for Villa, so it's difficult to go outside of the Prem because we'll get onto this game I imagine as well because it was a huge game. But Darwin Nunez comes in and struggles last season and produces magic yesterday. So once you step out, even someone that has scored a lot of goals, there's still sort of transitioning. Are they going to
Yeah.
get up to speed
I,
in the
lo- I
first
love I
week?
love now that the 2 names you mentioned there were Ivan Toney, who of course was the 3rd highest goal scorer in the Premier League last season, and then Ollie Watkins as well. I remember the exact episode when Cam mentioned those names, and you had your head buried in your desk. But this is the thing. Like it's like, what other options are there?
Yeah, look, what I'm saying is, in if I'm a Tottenham fan and we've sold Harry Kane, do I want us to be linked with Ivan Toney or do I want us to be linked with Ollie Watkins? No, I don't,
No.
because for me, those players are playing at the level that maybe Ivan could step up to a Villa or he could go up to, um, one of those teams that are on like the precipice.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, Ollie is where he is, so I think that they're at their level. I don't, Spurs, over the trajectory should be that kind of Champions League mix. I don't think that they are that level. So if I was a Tottenham fan, would I want them? No. Would I want them instead of Brennan Johnson? Yes. That's it. But the problem at the moment is there is a real drought of goal scorers out there. A real drought of going out and being able to, without spending crazy money, of bringing in a real top goal scorer. So until you can kind of identify one and pin it down, whoever that may be, um, I think they would be better options. But if I was a Tottenham fan, I wouldn't want any of the three of them.
Yeah. Well, speaking of clubs that spend ridiculous money, what have your thoughts been on Chelsea so far this season? Obviously, they've spent stupid amounts of money, highlighting particularly the Caicedo deal from Brighton. They obviously cherry picked Romeo Lavia, which I thought was hilarious, though. The fact that Liverpool were pussyfooting around Lavia about whether to pay Southampton 50 million or not, and then just to go straight in all of a sudden with a bid as high as Chelsea for Caicedo, agree the move, but then for him to turn around and go, no, actually, I've had my heart set on Chelsea, and then to go
Yeah,
back to Lavia and then put in more money than originally, and for Lavia to turn around and go, well, no. If he wanted me, he would have paid the money straight away, but no, you fucked about. You went in for Caicedo. He doesn't want to go. I'm obviously not your first choice, so I'm going to fuck off to Chelsea as well.
yeah. doesn't give a good look, does it?
No, it doesn't. Absolutely not. And then they end up spending, what was it? They brought in that Japanese midfielder Endo.
Yeah.
So it was a very bizarre few weeks when it came to transfers of both those clubs. But I mean, at the moment, I mean the results on the pitch aren't going Chelsea's way, despite all the millions and the fortunes they've spent on pretty much a whole new squad. Never mind a first 11.
Yeah, I think the Liverpool game was very back and forth, wasn't it?
Yeah,
First game of the season, two each, um, and the name Liverpool two each at home. You go, it's all right looking on paper, and maybe whether how fragile their midfield was without having a number six. But I guess at the same time, Chelsea didn't have one, so um, I think it was an okay result. One of the only few times they had scored more than 2 goals at home. So there was building blocks. I think they then got beat 3-1. Was it?
3-1 to West Ham. Yeah,
Yeah. I'll be disappointed from West Ham. Remarkably, have looked very good and beaten some teams that I don't think anyone really gave them a chance to. One being Chelsea and then one being Brighton as well. Fantastic result from. And obviously they've kind of gone in and rebuilt their midfield. James Ward-Prowse. They've obviously brought in
unbelievable piece of business, by the way. He's come in and he has just been exceptional.
Alvarez as well from Ajax.
Edson Alvarez as well. Yeah.
Which looks again at a decent price. I'm pretty sure they signed someone else in midfield as well, but can't remember who. But yeah, Chelsea kind of. I don't know how much you can gauge as well from Friday night. It was Luton, which sounds harsh because I'd love Luton to stay up just for the fairy tale, but they look a million miles off it. Unfortunately, they look like a championship team in the Prem, which they pretty much are.
Yeah, which we kind of expected as well. Like they were never gonna, go into this transfer window with the money that the other clubs that came up with to spend.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even think Sheffield United had a lot of money to spend either, but definitely more than Luton. And so, yeah, I think Luton are going to be in for a long season as well.
Yeah,
and I think with Chelsea,
their aim should just be get more points than that famous Derby County season because it's going to, I think it'll be a difficult. But we don't know how they perform at home. Kenilworth Road is going to be a difficult place for a load of people to go, and we'll get the first snippet of that when I think West Ham go there on Friday night. So we'll see what that's going to be like. I imagine it'll be a real hostile atmosphere under the lights.
yeah.
So it's going to be tasty. So we'll see what they're like at home. The home form's going to be huge. But yeah, I think it's going to be very, very difficult. Spells they were okay against Chelsea, but they end up losing 3-0. Raheem Sterling with a brace. His first goal was took really, really well. His second goal was took really well. So that was a decent performance. But again, I think you're probably looking at the team that's going to finish bottom of the Premier League, just with the kind of golf that's there. But they'll be happy enough to get those 3 points on the board, score 3 goals at home, kind of try and put to bed all this crap that they don't score more than one at home. And Poch has a lot of work to do. He was one of the probably only managers to get a lot of deadwood out of the club. And he's now going to have to build around the team that he has, show faith in the likes of Colwill and these boys and that Jackson up top, and really try and push forward. Obviously, they've got Casado in there, Lavia, so really refreshing the squad while keeping the likes of Reece James. I think he's injured at the moment and stuff like that.
When is he never?
Cucurella is
make him skipper as well.
Cucurella is linked with United as well, so obviously that's someone that he doesn't fancy. So yeah, if I think any Chelsea fan saying it would probably say 6 out of 10. Disappointed with the trip to the Millennium Stadium. Is it the Millennium Stadium? London Stadium. Sorry, no, Millennium Stadium's that big fucking red one in your homeland.
No, that's what Jamie found himself at.
Yeah. So, disappointed with the trip to the the London Stadium. You can
Yeah.
cut that, mate. It'd be grand.
I'm leaving it in. I'm just...
Disappointed with their trip to London Stadium, but they bounced back with a win. So yeah, 6 out of 10. I think there's promise there. Like I said, Raheem's looked good.
I think he looks his best again under Poch. I think he's had a massive resurgence under Poch.
So
and him and Jackson together look really good. I think.
They could definitely come good.
Yeah, and then someone who looks like who's under, it feels like a beast unleashed was Darwin Nunez when he came on against Newcastle yesterday.
Well, I mean,
there's a lot to cover in this game.
There's so much to break down from this game.
So much. So I guess we can go from the first half, starting with the red card with Virgil van Dijk.
I mean, we've got to go back further than that, mate. Because for me, Trent Alexander-Arnold should be sent off.
Yeah.
He throws the ball away, which is maybe a harsh booking. But the second one is an absolute stonewall yellow card.
Yep.
Right? And we see how strict they were going to be on this stuff when Tomiyasu was sent off at Selhurst Park.
Mm-hmm.
He was booked for time wasting for how long Arsenal took to take the throw, which I think was correct. It wasn't the fact that Tomiyasu took that long, but Arsenal as a team took that long, and then he had the ball in his hand at that point. He got booked. The second one, he has the smallest wee nudge of a pull on IU. He goes down, second yellow. So then we come into this game that Trent puts his arm out across Gordon,
yep,
and blocks him off. Cynical, yellow card. And if he didn't throw the ball away, he 1,000,000% gets booked for that. So I think he should have been sent off.
Yeah.
First controversial point. And then obviously the red card for Van Dijk. I think it's a red card. I think as he comes to clear the ball away, he cleans out.
He does, yeah.
Isaac.
A lot of people and fans would say that it's a yellow, but again, yes, he sweeps Isak out, and we can all speak hypothetically here, but ultimately it is a goal scoring opportunity. He gets onto that ball and he takes that touch, and then he has the whole goal.
I think he's definitely getting a shot away. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and if you give the foul, you don't really have an option. If I'm honest, because it's not like it's Dan Burn running through on that. You know that Isak's going to get there, and he's definitely getting a shot away. So it's definitely a goal scoring opportunity. If you're going to give the foul, and it was checked, and they were happy enough that there was contact, and I think he does clean through and before he gets to the ball. So. Yeah, for me, that one was right, but Liverpool at that point should have been down to 9.
Yeah, 100%.
Although I do think the ref probably shits himself if he's already sent off Trent. I think he books Van Dijk.
Perhaps, yeah. It could well change the whole dynamic of that game. Where, yeah, like you said, the ref gives the Van Dijk challenge a yellow, and then who knows what could have continued on in that game. I was just annoyed. I was annoyed throughout the first half. Before Anthony Gordon popped up, I was calling out Eddie Howe for not starting Harvey Barnes over Anthony Gordon. Like, why the fuck is this Claire boarding twat starting ahead of Harvey Barnes? Because of how
I think he had a good game, though.
He did have a good game. And he scored, and then I shut my mouth up.
But obviously, Trent's booked and realises after that incident where he doesn't get the second yellow that any little incident, anything he does, if he does it wrong, he's getting sent off. So Gordon was just getting the ball, dropping the shoulder, coming inside, and Trent wasn't close enough, couldn't get anywhere near him. So yeah, he had an easy day, but I thought he had a decent game.
Yeah, well, Trent's at fault for that goal as well. Completely at fault for that goal. And then, of course, there's Stu there. When Trent makes a mistake, he froths at the mouth. And
he thought about pulling him down as well. He's seeing the
replay. He does.
And then he goes, oh, shit. But I think what's kind of been wrapped around Newcastle is they've made decent signings, Tonali and throughout Eddie Howe's time, Bruno Guimaraes and Botman, the defence obviously limped off as well, which was sad to see. I think he's been brilliant since he's come in for Newcastle. But they I don't think they kind of jumped to where we expected them to qualify for Champions League. I think we really expect them to go out and make a real marquee signing. Now Tonali's looked fantastic. but I don't think they've gone up that level that we thought they were going to go up, um, and really go and bring in a real world class forward that was going to really improve them. I think, on the left, they've obviously got Harvey Barnes and they've got Gordon, which is okay. They've got up top, they've got Callum Wilson and Nizak, which is okay. That is that right hand side. Almiron works really hard. He was unlucky, he hit the post, but I really think they could improve there to really go and say, right, we're up here. I think they're probably being hampered by financial fair play, by how much money they can spend and all this
Yeah,
crap. But um, I don't think that we've really seen them go up a level, and I think that's what cost them. I think Gary Neville said it as well post match that they're really lacking the firepower that would have punished
yeah.
Liverpool. And
And I
on the
think
flip side,
I think that marquee signing that we were expecting for them to sign, it could well be Tonali.
but Tonali is a fantastic player, and he's shown that. But I don't think he's not gonna you're not gonna bag him that 20-25 goals that
No,
takes them up the way. So they may be lacking that.
that's it.
And
I think
then
they pinpoint the wrong area, perhaps. I think
and
that was their big like signing, and of course they spent a lot of money on Harvey Barnes as well. But yeah, like you said, like to bring in someone who, like you said, is going to take them up that next level, that is going to allow them to compete in in the Champions League or just in Europe in general, and to not really have any concerns when it comes to rotation either.
yeah.
And they didn't do it.
And then on the flip side, Liverpool are bringing on um, Diego Jota and Nunez.
And then Nunez comes on, makes the whole difference, scores two very well taken goals, and again it just feels like it's like releasing a caged animal, because we saw him come into the Premier League last season, had a rough time getting to get going, and again he's come off the bench in a massive spectacle against Newcastle, and fires 10 men Liverpool to 3 points, and they find themselves up there amongst the likes of Tottenham and Man City
And West Ham.
and West Ham as well. They are fucking massive though, remember.
Everywhere they go. Um, so a great result for Liverpool.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
huge result.
Against a run of play, they defended well. I mean the save that, and I know it's kind of at him, the keeper. What's his name?
Allison.
Yep, but I wanted to call him Anderson for some reason. Um, so I know it's kind of at Allison, but that like chest down volley from Almiron, travelling at some pace, to get anything on that, and then obviously keep it at.
The keeper's still got to react. That's the thing. They've still got to react.
So, and then obviously they hit the post. I mean, I can remember that Harvey Barnes goes through and probably should have pushed it across to Callum Wilson for an easier chance, kind of dawdles and gets his feet kind of mixed up. So Newcastle had a load of chances to kill that game off. Nunez takes his, and then in the absolute dying embers of the game, it's a wonderful finish.
Incredible.
Tight angle, takes it so well.
Yeah, and I think that's going to really give Klopp a lot to think about when it comes to his team selection.
Yeah, I mean his midfield is done and dusted, isn't it? That it's going to be Szoboszlai, it's going to be McAllister, and then insert name here. Whether it's the Japanese boy or they go in the market again, who knows? But
then he's got to be looking going forward Salah, Diaz, and Darwin.
Yeah, I think if that you can't really do much more as a sub, to get picked than that. So, but we have seen him at times. He's a bit fumbly, and he had a chance to take the ball down. The ball was coming over the top of his head, took a really poor touch. So he's a lot to work on, but with that kind of finishing prowess and that explosiveness, if he can, tighten a few things up, that is a player there that does bag you 20 goals a season.
Yeah, 100% easily.
And he has a real frustration because he does get a lot of chances, but if we'll see over the coming weeks, but if he can if he's tightened that up and that 100%, that's a man that you back there for at least 20 goals, and that's the kind of numbers you need if you're gonna go and try and push this juggernaut that is City.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, I wanted to give Aston Villa a bit more airtime tonight, but I'm really not. I've got a very bad taste in my mouth with Villa. Of course, they're playing Burnley. We don't like to give them airtime whatsoever. Um,
It's nice to give them airtime when they get beat.
it is, yeah, they did get beat, but some fucking dumb bastard for Arsenal were going to start Gabriel against Fulham after Tomiyasu being suspended, Uran Timber being injured. Thought, yeah, Gabriel will start. So who do I leave on the bench to start Gabriel on my fantasy team? Matty Cash.
You've had a nightmare, mate.
Haven't heard the end of it at work today.
I'm sure you haven't. Rightly so. The Polish wizard that speaks brilliant English.
Yeah.
That was a wee bit of a mad game as well. That kind of came out of nowhere, the Fulham result.
Yeah, 2-2 in the end. That was... Yeah, I don't know what it is with Arsenal. And I said this as well before the season started. I just got a gut feeling that Arsenal won't be able to... Again, it's still early days, and again, depends on what effect it has on Arsenal when it comes to them playing in Europe as well. But for whatever reason, I just don't see them being competition for City.
I think that they've signed decent. I think Rice is decent. I wouldn't go much more than that. I think he's got a load of English hype around him. I think he's decent. Does he improve him? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't rate Havertz. I don't understand that signing.
Ridiculous, yeah.
I rate Timber, but in absolute true Arsenal fashion, he's torn his ACL and he's out for a long time. I don't understand this Thomas Partey at right back shit. Like he's not John Stones. I don't know what you're thinking. Like just play people in the right position, and then add down to one left back. And I imagine they're going to do some business, or they may have done some business. I don't know, but the fact that all they have is Zinchenko, and they've obviously let KT go out on loan, so it seems strange. Gabriel looks destined for the Saudi League as well, if reports are to be believed. So maybe that dials into why they're not playing him. Obviously, they've got Ben White that operated pretty successfully at right back.
Yeah. That Polish boy as well can play right back as well. That Jakub Kiwior.
I think he was playing left back, wasn't he? I think that's where
Did they put him left back?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, strange, but Arsenal are a team that can catch fire and build up real good momentum. We've seen that, but I think it's always hard when you have such a good season, and they did have a fantastic season, and then it peters out and it fades away. I think it is really difficult to refresh yourself and really then go and push, a team that is just gonna. We know what City are gonna do. They're gonna churn out and deliver, 90 plus points. It's hard to beat, so you've got to be on it from the get go. And any kind of drop points makes it a little bit difficult. And City look like they're actually for once going to start well, which is a little bit scary for the rest of the league.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was an interesting game, the City-Sheffield United game. It was a similar story with Erling Haaland, where, of course, he had the penalty miss to start off with, and then, again, just missing clear-cut chances left, right and centre, and you just think, like, this guy would be hitting even more ridiculous numbers than usual if he would take his chances. Eventually takes one, and then, again, one break from Sheffield United and they find themselves back on level terms. And then, I tell you what, the finish from Rodri for that second goal is just a bullet into that top corner. Fantastic goal from Rodri. And just goes to show, like, it's the mentality of champions.
Yeah, that's what they do. Don't know when they're beat or when they're not. Don't know when to stop winning games. Just know how to win games, and they've got that knack. And yeah, I think they'll be I think everybody said it, and it doesn't come as any great surprise, isn't any big revelation, but they'll be very, very difficult to stop in the Premier League, no matter who you are.
Yeah.
And you almost have, we see those Liverpool battles they had with them a few seasons ago. You have to be perfect, or COVID has to hit.
Yes.
Need a pandemic, or you need to be perfect. Like, so
Don't need fans.
you got no
Yeah.
fans.
Yeah, but City are another team that have managed to act on any transfer activity they've done. So with Mahrez going to Saudi, they brought in Jeremy Doku. Laporte going out, brought in Guardiola. Got rid of Gundogan, immediately brought in Kovacic. Like again, like it's filling those voids right away and being proactive
Yeah,
in
they've
order to maintain
linked
those
with
levels.
linked with that Wolves boy as well. That's like flat out refusing to train now because Wolves rejected a bid for him.
Oh, that Matthias Nunez, yeah.
Yeah, absolute shithousery from him. But so yeah, they just churn these players through. They have the depth, and they deliver, and they'll be there or thereabouts. I think in pretty much every competition this year again. They've obviously got the monkey off the back in the Champions League, and they just know how to win that Premier League. Unprecedented four times in a row, never been done. So it'll be interesting. But if any team's going to break that, it's going to be this Man City team.
100%. Easily. You can't think of it being anyone else at this rate. It's good to be back, mate. Like I've missed
Mate,
it. I think it's been a lot of ammunition we've been wanting to fire off for a while.
Yeah. No, it's been really good to be back. And yeah, long may it can continue. Hopefully, like I said, next week we're in higher spirits, or you're in even higher spirits. Obviously, you have come off a good win. But next week, win, lose or draw, I'll take my medicine. Should it need to be taken? But I'll be here.
He'll be here. Unlike some people, he's loyal.
I said, mate. Unlike some people, I'm loyal.
Mate, pleasure as always, mate. Thank you very much for joining me this evening. Ladies and gents, thanks for tuning in. If you've only just discovered the Football Booth podcast, you can check us out on pretty much all audio platforms from Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Audible, Google Podcasts. We are everywhere. If you'd like to see our beautiful faces, you can check out our YouTube channel at the Football Booth. Whilst you're over there, drop a like, subscribe, drop a comment as well. Let us know your thoughts on how you think of the show. And until next week, ladies and gents, I bid you all good night and Nostar.